So losing your top two offensive weapons is never ideal, I guess. But with the Carolina Panthers, particularly when they lost Christian McCaffrey via trade and also DJ Moore via trade to move up to get Bryce Young, it reset pretty much everything offensively. And Scott Fitterer and the new head coach Frank Reich have done a lot this offseason to add pieces onto this team. And pretty much the only thing that's the same is that core offensive line. I wanted to do a film installment on every new piece because there may be some guys that the Panthers fans may not be particularly familiar with. I did my first few parts doing Hayden Hurst and DJ Chark. This time we're going to look at running back Miles Sanders, formerly of the Philadelphia Eagles. This was a big get for the Panthers because Miles Sanders was a top 10 running back in terms of production last year. And what kind of elements will he bring to this team? Because it seems like we're going to be looking for a new identity. And with the rookie quarterback, we could be heavily leaning on that running game along with this offensive line. So in this video, like I said, I'm going to dive in, give you some numbers in particular about Miles Sanders, why I think he can have a good year, why I'm maybe also concerned as well about him and what he does outside of that Philly organization, and just give you the film to support those points that I make. And we're starting right now. What up, dudes? It's Aaron Duncan here with the Unnecessary.Bluntness Sports Talk, bringing you recap and analysis of the Carolina Panthers and the NFL. So if you want to see more film breakdowns like this, news and updates, I do live streams every week as well to discuss the latest Panthers news for that week. Make sure you are subscribed down below and hit the bell icon, because that bell icon is going to make sure you get a notification every time I drop a video, okay? You want to stay on top of that, hit that bell icon too. That's the only way you're going to guarantee to get a notification every time I drop a video. So Miles Sanders is actually a pretty big get for the Carolina Panthers this offseason in terms of free agency. I mean, this guy rushed for over 1,200 yards last year, which was good enough for fifth in the league, and also had 11 touchdowns. He was the lead back, a part of that superpower Philadelphia Eagles offense that led all the way to the Super Bowl berth before they came up short, of course, against the Kansas City Chiefs. However, Miles Sanders left the Eagles for, seems like, a little bit more opportunity. We talked about it a little bit more in a previous video, but Miles Sanders is going to be looking to be the man here in Carolina as the main back and the feature back within this team. Head coach Frank Reich has talked about how Miles Sanders is an every down back and how productive he is. And the numbers don't lie on Miles Sanders. He's been very productive from a statistical standpoint. I personally was a little bit skeptical of Miles just from the outside looking in, but after looking at the film and the analytics, there's some good things and there's some things that have me a little bit concerned, and we'll definitely have to pay attention to and watch closer as this season comes on. The way I like to define a running back is not necessarily what you do when everything is blocked perfectly, because you wouldn't make it to the NFL if you couldn't hit holes and make things happen when things are blocked perfect. I like to look at things when things are a little bit murky and messy, and how many yards can you squeeze out of there? I know Christian McCaffrey, a former back that we had, was very good at making chicken salad out of chicken doo-doo. You know what I'm saying? I can be PG for you guys. But he was able to make things happen when things were pretty ugly for this Carolina Panthers team, and was still able to be productive. The thought process is that the offensive line has a job to do. They're going to block up certain things, but what can you do after contact, after defenders get their hands and their arms on you? What do you do in open field to make things happen? And in terms of Miles Sanders, he was 8th in the NFL in missed tackles forced, which is pretty good. Like I said, he was number 5 overall in rushing yards total. So being that high in missed tackles, it proves my point about being able to make things happen on your own. He was also 7th in the league in yards after contact, meaning that the first defender after they got after him, he was 7th in the league of getting yards, even when he was supposed to possibly go down or even potentially be tackled for a loss or something like that. So those two stats really showed me a lot about him being able to create things on his own and really get those tough yards. But as I said, there are some other things that made me concerned, because when in terms of Miles Sanders, we know that that Eagles team was loaded with one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and also one of the best running quarterbacks in the NFL with Jalen Hurts as well. That offensive line is elite, and so it almost feels like anybody you put back there could have gotten yards. And in terms of yards before contact, which is typically a good indicator of how well the offensive line blocks, this is the yardage that a running back gets before a defender even touches him. Miles Sanders was 4th in the NFL amongst running backs in yards before contact. So yes, he could get yards after contact. He was top 10 in that, but you see how many yards that the offensive line blocked for him, with him being 4th in the NFL in yards before contact, which is crazy. With a little over 3 yards before contact, that means you're getting almost a free 3 yards from your offensive line before you even have to do any extra work per se. So the Panthers offensive line is improving, but they're definitely a couple of notches below that vaulted Eagles offensive line. So will Miles Sanders be able to be as productive with not as good of an offensive line? That's a question of concern that we have to think about. Of course, the Eagles were loaded. They like to spread things out with Dallas Goedert at tight end, A.J. Brown at wide receiver, Devontae Smith, and of course, Jalen Hurts running the show in the backfield. You can spread that field, and there's not as many defenders in the box. When I mean the box, I mean inside that tackle box where those guys like linebackers, defensive linemen trying to stop the run. When you have those type of weapons on the outside, you have to spread the field. And according to the analytics, when Miles Sanders carried the ball, he only faced an average of 6.5 defenders in the box. So let's do some math, because when you factor in Jalen Hurts as a running factor that has to be accounted for by the defense, you have 4 D linemen and you have 2 linebackers, and you say a half the defender. So if there's 6 defenders in the box, you have 5 linemen blocking those 6 guys, plus you have 1 guy in Jalen Hurts that has to be accounted for. That's 6 plus Miles Sanders. You have that numbers advantage with 7 offensive guys versus 6 defensive guys in the box. And according to carries into a light box per se, which is 6 or fewer defenders, Miles Sanders was 13th in the NFL. So that's pretty high for the amount of time that you run into advantageous situations. I hope you guys are kind of keeping up. I've been getting a lot of numbers, but basically it comes down to, because all the talent the Eagles had and spread out, they had to account for them on the outside, leaving a numbers advantage inside for Miles Sanders to run. So will that be that same advantage here? Because we do not have the same talent on the outside. We have some guys, but I assume that most teams will be loading the box and testing our wide receivers, because that is probably our biggest question mark on this offense. Will they have to respect the pass, or will they just load up on the box? So it's going to be a big world of a difference for Miles Sanders having to run into a loaded box versus into a light box. Regardless, I think Miles Sanders has all the tools to make things happen. So let's go ahead and get into the film room, and I'll show you just what exactly he can do. All right, so I talked about Miles Sanders and his ability to get yards after contact, and I talked about how I define a running back is what he can do when things aren't blocked perfectly. And this is going to be a good example right here. We're going to get double teams up front from the interior linemen, but it's not going to be a clear picture. This offensive line is phenomenal, but I wanted to find some times where they don't do a perfect job, and he has to create some things on his own, and that's exactly what goes on here. Miles Sanders is going to run to the left out of the shotgun. He's going to get the ball right here, and look, there's going to be a defender right here in the hole waiting for him. That's kind of where he wants to go. He can't bounce it outside because the defender is being blocked to the outside. There's not really a ton to cut back to as well. It's a good job by the defense initially. He's going to press the hole, though, and the defense starts to collapse. He's going to keep those feet alive, keep searching, run through some arm tackles, and still get enough to move the chains. You can see Lane Johnson getting turned up. Let's watch it from this view, because he gets tackled by the secondary. There's going to be some double team. You're going to get a double team right here with the guard in the center. Double team right here, backside as well. He's going to try to go to the left. Trying to go to the left. It's not. There's linebacker sitting right here in the hole waiting on him. Waiting on him. He can't go there. Can't bounce it to the outside. Look, keeps those feet alive. Tries to search. Bounces it. Look, everybody collapses. He presses the hole. Runs through an arm tackle there. Gets downhill. Still able to get enough to move those chains, man. I like it. When it's muddy, what do you do? When it's muddy, what do you do? Defender on him, run through them arm tackles, drop them low, shoulder pass, use that burst. He's not much of a home run hitter, which is what I really want from a running back, your premier running back, but he definitely has a burst to get those explosive 10, 15-yard runs consistently, especially with our offensive line. So I like what Miles Sanders can do in this offense. He can definitely move them chains consistently. Okay, so here's another example of Miles Sanders in the red zone, showing a nose for the end zone, showing what that burst can do. Like I said, he's not really a home run hitter, but in that 10 to 15-yard range, he's a tough guy to tackle here against the Packers. And he's going to get the ball going to the left, and it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be blocked perfectly. You got Lane Johnson running across, and I talked about the benefits of having a running quarterback, and I talked about these light boxes. This guy's staring directly at Jalen Hurts, and he's not going to try to make a play on Miles Sanders because it's not his assignment. When you have a quarterback that can run, defenders are assigned to make sure he doesn't beat you. And so what happens here, it's a numbers game. You have one Packer, 2 Packer, 3 Packer, 4 Packer, 5 and 6, and then you got full 5 linemen and a running back. Okay, but it doesn't get blocked perfectly. Like I said, this offensive line is pretty elite, but I want to find a chance where it's not pretty. And you can see There's a lane right here, but this defender is going to peel off right when Miles Sanders gets through. Look, a D tackle all over him. He shrugs him off like it's nothing. A linebacker on him, shrugs him off like it's nothing, finds a nose for the end zone. Let's run it all the way back. All the way back and running in fast motion. Gonna get it. D tackle on him. Run straight through it. Barely break stride. Another one barely break stride. Keep those feet moving. Keeps pressing. Like I said, a burst. When you have a burst, it's hard to arm tackle these guys. Even a big guy that's a defensive tackle like 97, it's hard to tackle a guy with a burst. Look, shrugs him off. Shrugs him off. It's hard to tackle a guy with a burst. It's hard to tackle a guy with a burst. He's got a burst. He makes that jump cut. When he knows where he wants to go, he's going to get there in a hurry, man. Running through arm tackles, I love what he'll be able to do with that, like I said, 10, 15, 20-yard chunk runs. I love Miles Sanders in that scenario. Like I said, it may not be the home run hitter that everybody else is, but you can see what he can do with breaking tackles and when defenders try to arm tackle him. This is not even really arm tackle. He's all over him, but shrugs him off. This guy, arm tackle. That's not going to get it done with Miles Sanders. Gets into the end zone, man. I'm excited to see what Miles Sanders will do in this offense. All right, so this play is right here just going to be a dagger against the New York Giants in a rivalry game, of course. Miles Sanders is going to be lined up in the pistol in the backfield behind Jalen Hurts, and they're going to get a guard to pull around to the right side. He's going to run to this close sideline and hit this home run for 40 yards. Watch the patience on this run, though. I love how this thing is set up and blocked perfectly. Like I said, will Miles Sanders be able to do things where things aren't blocked perfectly? Because I showed you sometimes when it wasn't pretty. This is the time when it's pretty. So take advantage of those instances, and that's exactly what he's going to do. This offensive line is just phenomenal, and Miles Sanders barely gets touched, if at all. Great patience to get to the outside and just enough speed to finish it right before the end zone, man. So you can see the guard right here is pulling. We got down blocks right here. A kick out right here by this lineman. Miles Sanders is going to be patient. He's going to dance just a little bit, let the trash seep up, get skinny, and boom, sets it up. He sets it up by going inside. You see how he's kind of aiming through this hole right here? That makes this defender think that he's going to come through this hole. But he sets it up, and Miles Sanders, boom, bounces outside. That gives him the angle to outrun the defense. Going down the sideline, we're dancing in the end zone. One more time on that one, just because this offensive line blocking is phenomenal. So you're going to have old school power play. Down, 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 down by the tight end, a pulling guard, and then the tight end is going to lead up in there. Miles Sanders is going to have great patience, let things sort itself out, and hit it. Patience, hop, step, dance, get outside, let's go. We off to the races and we dancing in the end zone, man. Miles Sanders can do some things, man. Like I said, it's not always going to be blocked perfectly, especially in Carolina with our offensive line being a little bit of a notch below the Eagles. But Miles Sanders can run when it's pretty, when it's not pretty, and either way. So let's see. It's going to be a lot more of the scenarios where it's not pretty. So make sure we pay attention to what Miles Sanders can do in those scenarios. So as you can see, Miles Sanders has a mixed bag of tricks. He can do a little bit of everything, man. He's definitely going to be used as a 3-down back, and he will be leaned upon a lot with our rookie quarterback. We see that one last home run hit that he made, but he doesn't really get a ton of those. Can he get some explosive plays? Because we don't need to be a methodical offense overall. Being able to take some pressure off that defense and getting some big plays will be a good benefactor, but Miles Sanders will get every opportunity to be the man and prove that the Eagles were wrong to let him go, because they let him go because they probably felt that he was expendable with the great offensive line that they had, especially with those numbers I showed you at yards before contact and how many opportunities came against light boxes and what they do with their scheme. So they probably felt he was expendable. Regardless, he's going to be the man here and get to prove his worth, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do, and you definitely have to pay attention to that because we're going to need him a lot, man, and his success or failure is probably going to be predicated on what this offense does as a whole in general. But you guys let me know down below in the comments how you feel about Miles Sanders overall. Now that I've shown you this film and I gave you the numbers about what he did and what the Eagles were able to help him with overall as a back and how good they were just overall. So let me get your thoughts down below in the comments. Without further ado, I'm Aaron Duncan signing off. I'll see you next time. Peace.